Hi, this is Dr. James Reaney, and I'm glad to have your ear once again. Thanks for continuing to listen to Letting Destiny Deliver, the no-nonsense prescription dedicated to giving you what you need to know to raise your self-health awareness. This dedication to raising your level of self-health awareness would not be complete, however, without an exploration of the dimension of time. Time, be it friend or foe, prevents inner space from collapsing into timelessness. Time allows memories to accumulate and gives inner space resonance. Like fantasy and relationship, time is a powerful force that affects how the self is defined. So what is time? To make time a practical concept, it needs to be understood as movement or motion. Seeing time from the perspective explains why we hear people saying things like, time flies when you're having fun, time waits for no one, or time just seemed to drag. The notion that time is motion becomes especially apparent when we stop to think that a 24-hour day is equivalent to one rotation of the Earth on its axis, or that a year is equivalent to one revolution of the Earth around the Sun. Although we intuitively sense that time is motion, we often fail to recognize the greater meaning of this idea. Instead, we let time slip away as if we had forever. We are lulled to sleep by how time moves imperceptibly into the future. So wake up and don't let time pass you by. Take the time to act on your destiny now and always. I say this because you only have so much time to achieve your potential in all its various aspects. Time is a gatekeeper as it opens and closes doors, which means your destiny depends in part on your ability to be at the right place at the right time. The keys to being in the right place at the right time lie in the proper use of persistence, patience, and planning, as they let you tap the power and momentum created by the three dimensions of time: the past, the present, and the future. The first key, persistence, prevents slow progress from dwindling into nothing, because being persistent means you are not a quitter. With persistence, you are empowered to overcome doubt, obstacles, and setbacks. To be good at anything requires persistence. Persistence not only gives you the opportunity to use what you have learned from past experience, it also gives you the option of converting what you have learned into wisdom. To strengthen yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally, you must persist in what is nurturing and minimize the toxic. This means making an ongoing effort to cast out all that is inferior and degrading to the self. In other words, persistence in what is good is being good at identifying and removing toxins and nurturing the transformation of positive potentials into reality. Persistence should not be confused with obsessiveness, however. Obsessiveness is the compulsive preoccupation with a fixed idea, feeling, or emotion, whereas persistence is the ability to hold firmly and steadfastly to a purpose. In this case, purpose is synonymous with destiny. If you are persistent, then you are willing to go the distance. You are in it for the duration, which is essential if you are to survive the natural fluctuations and struggles that times of turmoil, growth, or change bring about. Holding firmly and steadfastly to a purpose allows you to maintain some sense of order during good and bad times. It is during times of struggle and turmoil that we are tempted to give up or quit. Rather than quitting, however, these times need to be used as opportunities to fill in the gaps in awareness so that when the turmoil is over, you are even better prepared to move forward. Metaphorically speaking, you need to be fluid like water, because water always fills in the empty places along its path before it flows on. This brings me to the second key, patience, which is just as important as persistence when it comes to harnessing the forces of time. Where persistence empowers you to overcome setbacks and adversity, patience empowers you to overcome the fact that things don't always happen as quickly as you would like. The Great Pyramids of Egypt, built over several generations, are a symbol of the power of persistence and patience. Since the journey to selfhood is slow, persistence and patience are indispensable. Patience appropriately applied allows you to seize the potential that good timing can bring, because you are waiting with certainty for the right time to act. Waiting in this way keeps you from expending your energy prematurely and unnecessarily. Although it might appear as if nothing is happening, something very important is happening. Rather than seizing the wrong opportunity and failing, which can lead to giving up, you are waiting for the right opportunity with no intentions of quitting. For example, Muhammad Ali was a huge underdog when he fought George Foreman for the heavyweight boxing title of the world. Foreman was favored because he had a devastating knockout punch. To counter Foreman's awesome punching power, Ali and his trainer came up with the rope-a-dope. The plan was for Ali to lean back against the ropes, cover his face and chest with his arms and gloves, and let Foreman punch away. The thinking was that over the course of several rounds, Foreman would punch himself out. For this plan to work, Ali, while training for the fight, had to condition himself to withstand such punishment. Armed with a good plan, the patience and persistence needed to pull it off, Ali was empowered to seize the title. Ali pulled the plan off as he waited for the right time to start punching back. Eventually, he knocked out Foreman and regained the heavyweight boxing title of the world. This true-to-life example shows how persistence, patience, and planning improve your chances of overcoming odds, obstacles, and inner demons. Just as important as having patience, planning, and persistence is maximizing the 3 levels of awareness contained in each dimension of time. For the most part, the past is remembered in bits and pieces, leaving most of the awareness of the past to be forgotten. Likewise, few are able to be in the moment. Awareness often wanders into the past or the future. Because of this, the present is greatly underutilized. We are prone to looking either into the past or the future. The past, which is stored in the unconscious, is a hidden treasure built on memories. Memories that not only give you a history, but that also define you in many ways. Memories help you make sense of the present, as well as build expectations for the future. In reality, memories, rather than being passively stored away, actively contribute to our daily thinking. Memories are the echoes of time, and if used properly, contribute to the mind's ability to evolve. Every time we revisit a memory, we have the prospect of learning something new. In other words, reflecting allows us to reassociate and reorganize memories in a way that brings about deeper insights. Reflecting lets you take advantage of hindsight, which after all is 20/20. What this means is that the insights and hindsight gained through conscious self-reflection can then be used to guide your actions in the future. Thus, hindsight becomes transformed into foresight. And since history has a tendency to repeat itself, there will be plenty of chances to use the hindsight in the future. The past, if used in the right way, will make you more effective in the present and the future. Using the past is much smarter than being haunted with the regret that comes from past mistakes and disappointments. In the past lies a treasure you can use to strengthen your character and increase self-awareness. Your ego must be able to properly process the dimensions of time, just as your lungs must be able to process oxygen. Too often, however, our picture of the past, present, or future blocks or fixates our movement from the potential into the actual. This is because our image of any or all of these dimensions can become filled with fear, shame, guilt, anger, regret, and anxiety. Rather than flooding the dimensions of time with immobilizing emotions, you are better served by imagining the plans and resources you need to effectively bridge the gap between the present and the future. Similarly, by turning into foresight, you build a more successful link between the past and the future. The tale of the 3 keys can be summed up as follows. Persistence, the key combined with conscious self-reflection, helps you overcome self-doubt, obstacles, and negative influences from the past. Patience, the second key, furnishes you with the ability to deal with the present by keeping you still and preventing hasty action. Finally, the third key, planning, empowers the future because chance favors the prepared mind. These 3 keys help you unlock the potential that with time can be turned into something real. You need all 3 keys to successfully complete your journey to destiny. Planning and setting goals is especially useful as it allows you to outline your journey. It allows you to tune into your vision and see the possibilities that exist in the future now. Having persistence, patience, and planning make it possible for the tumblers of time to fall into place, and thereby making good things happen. Using the 3 keys to access the dimensions of time improves your ability to better recognize opportunity when it is standing right in front of you. So make sure you set goals and develop a plan that will enthusiastically empower you to achieve your goals. Use patience to be in harmony with the now and persistence so you can have that certainty that no matter what, you are never going to give up. Time, like the mind and the body, has a cyclical nature and alternates between opposing forces. In this case, the opposing forces of tick and tock, or opportunity and adversity, both of which activate potentials. Just as a mariner becomes skilled by navigating both calm and rough seas, you become skilled at life by learning how to navigate the natural cycle of opportunity and adversity. Learning how to work with this natural cycle of opportunity and adversity means not personalizing adversity or developing feelings of inadequacy because bad times have befallen you. Instead, apply the principles of persistence, patience, and planning in an objective and focused manner. The movements through space we call time are somewhat invisible, but nonetheless powerful. Just as the wind can imperceptibly level mountains over time, the forces of time shape us imperceptibly. Letting destiny deliver is your opportunity to take advantage of that and harness that otherwise invisible but powerful force, time. Because time is truly a temperamental force, you can't always be in control of the winds of time and chance. Nonetheless, you can control its effect on you. Your mind and its ability to be self-reflective gives you the power to choose and shape your consciousness. As your experiences expose you to the benevolent and destructive forces in the world, you can use your intelligence and self-reflective consciousness to choose nurturing over toxic, and to make choices that allow you to learn from the consequences of your actions and the actions of others, thereby empowering you. You've heard me go on and on about the self and how important its relationship to the ego is. I've explained how the forces of human nature, fantasy, relationship, and time are powerful agents acting on the self, giving it shape and form. I've even gone so far as to say that the mind, body, and spirit is a self-health system through which the self must express itself. I've elaborated on all of these things because to have self-health, you must know thyself. Knowing thyself should not be confused with self-centeredness or being egotistical, as it is neither of these. Self-knowledge is not being preoccupied with your own thoughts. Instead, it is an awareness and recognition of the effects you produce, both good and bad. Distinguishing self-knowledge from self-centeredness is just as important as distinguishing the toxic from the nurturing. It's deja vu. This moment's happened before. If you are to achieve and maintain the heights of your mental, physical, and spiritual powers, you will need to overcome your ego's resistance to self-examination. This resistance comes from the ego's tendency to deny, disown, or blame others for what it doesn't like or want. Sort of like the way many people feel about the sound of their voice. Many people don't like the sound of their voice, so much so that they are shy about listening to themselves on a tape recorder. Not only that, they prefer to believe their voice sounds the way it does to them in day-to-day conversation. The same is true when it comes to self-knowledge. The ego often finds it easier to believe in a distorted version of self than face the true self. There are several layers of protection the ego must move beyond in order to objectively know the self. The first layer is being cliché. At the cliché level, the ego is more comfortable relating on a superficial level. When it is relating on this level, it is defending against hurt or rejection. The problem with this level of superficiality is that you never get to anything of much substance. If the ego musters the courage to move beyond this cliché layer, it then enters into the next level, which is the roles and games layer. At this level, the ego often chooses to pretend to be or feel one way when in fact they're not that way. The number of games and roles we can play are endless and range anywhere from the self-torture game of indecisiveness to playing the victim role. Every ego has its favorite roles and games and uses them primarily to manipulate. If the ego decides to stop playing roles and games and be more real, a conflict or crisis often brings it on. Like Shakespeare's Hamlet, every man and woman must choose to be or not to be. That is, to be real or not real. When we are playing games and roles, we are not being real. Hamlet, because he couldn't decide whether to be or not to be, found himself stuck at the next layer, the impasse layer, as he was unable to commit to one or the other. It took a crisis to get him committed, and by then it was too late. Without authenticity, it becomes difficult to distinguish the real from the phony, or the toxic from the nurturing. Without authenticity, we cannot gain the kind of self-knowledge is needed to keep the gravitational forces from burying us. To gain self-knowledge, the ego especially needs to be aware of on whom care is bestowed and on whether it is cultivating the toxic or the nurturing. By observing these things rather than denying, disowning, or repressing them, the ego is better positioned to know what it regards as important and what it does not. If the ego can achieve this kind of awareness and understanding, it will be better able to make healthy choices about where to put its energies. Another way the ego can be working towards self-knowledge is by observing what goes in and out of the mouth and determining how much of it is toxic and how much of it is nurturing. Lastly, the ego needs to be committed, somewhat uninhibited, and unselfish in expressing the self by way of the mind, body, and spirit. Doing these things establishes a healthy relationship between the ego and the self, and at the same time fosters self-knowledge. Having a healthy relationship between the ego and the self is not enough, however. One must also have the freedom to pursue the choices that are determined by one's innermost preferences. The choices we make about our preferences must come from not only a place of authenticity, but also responsibility. Coming from such a place is difficult, however, because toxic thinking and behavior is not only tempting, but addictive. Temptation and addiction make it difficult to make good choices and have allure because they give a false sense of power and pleasure. This false sense of power often leads to favoring manipulation over truth. Unfortunately, constantly manipulating by playing roles and games takes away from the ability to make healthy choices. Without the courage to face the truth about yourself, you will be without an inner compass. You will be lost days uncounted. Toxicity, although tempting, is bad for the self because it sooner or later blocks spontaneity due to its addictive nature. Toxicity, although tempting, interferes with the ability to process emotions, naturalness, and self-acceptance. Toxicity, although tempting, distorts the awareness of needs and confounds the ability to achieve mental and emotional intimacy. Toxicity is bad not only for these reasons, but also because it breeds defensiveness, vindictiveness, and deviant motives. Unfortunately, it is all too easy to follow the collective thinking which conditions us to value such things as control, the inhibition of naturalness, discipline, and to fear what lies in the depths of our human nature. Although these things are touted, they nonetheless run contrary to self-health and breed toxicity. Perhaps this is why so many people suffer with identity issues, anxiety, and depression. To have self-health, we must satisfy the instinctual needs of love and belonging, self-esteem, and respect. To do this, we need relationships, but not just any relationship. For relationships to nurture self-health, they must be able to harness the therapeutic forces of healthy relationships. An analysis of healthy relationships show us that the giving of security, love, a sense of belonging, feelings of worth, and self-esteem are the most powerful tools for achieving self-knowledge. Healthy relationships offer many satisfactions such as mutual frankness, trust, honesty, a lack of defensiveness, as well as the expression of a healthy amount of passivity, relaxation, childishness, and silliness. These promote self-health because they allow us to be who we are. Relationships of this kind will help us find our greater self. Healthy relationships inspire the desire to be. They inspire you to want to know more and more about the other person. They unleash your natural curiosity to unfold every wrapping, to unlock every door. Healthy relationships can evoke within you the desire to structure the world, to understand it deeply, and to have it make sense. Finally, there is that therapeutic force in relationships known as affection. Too often, affection is severely inhibited in relationships. Affection is easily strangled and mixed with embarrassment, guilt, defensiveness, playing a role, and with a struggle for dominance. A good, healthy relationship encourages the open verbal and physical expression of affection for the sake of nurturing the mind, the body, and the spirit. A person who is not afraid of self-knowledge can be in relationships and at the same time keep the forces of imitation, suggestion, prejudice, hatred, and hostility as minor forces in their life. This is because self-knowledge gives you a healthy ability to maintain self-rule, have resistance to the opinion of others, and yet be open-minded and unselfish. It enables you to use rationality and self-reflective thinking in a way that is directed, organized, and motivated. Knowing your true self empowers you to use fantasy, daydreaming, symbolism, unconscious thinking, emotion, and free association in a way that maintains the health and integrity of the self-health system. Overall, your behavior will be less determined by anxiety, fear, insecurity, guilt, shame, and more by truth, logic, justice, reality, fairness, fitness, beauty, and rightness. Just as today's society strives for speed and disposability, today's relationships are fast and disposable. On the surface, this may seem harmless, but it profoundly affects the self-health system. Relationships are to the self-health system what the soil is to a plant. It allows it to take root and then nurtures it. The greater benefits from relationships able to harness these therapeutic forces are not readily realized. This is why it is so easy to prefer superficiality and not depth. Depth is like the movements of the minute hand on a clock. Its actions are not noticeable second by second, but more so after much time has passed. The impact of our actions are not noticeable day to day. It is only after their greater accumulation that we come to realize what we have been doing. Like a 52-year-old client of mine once said, "When I was young, if I didn't like what my boss told me to do, I would quit, because I could always find another $5 an hour job." He then went on to say, "What I didn't realize then is that I'd be sitting here today some 20 years later, still earning $5 an hour." On the surface, it didn't seem as if he was losing anything, but at the deeper level he was, because he wasn't accumulating anything either. The same thing happens if relationships are viewed as disposable. Through time, the imperceptible becomes visible. Therefore, when it comes to self-health and relationships, you definitely want time on your side. You can have time on your side if you apply the principles of persistence, patience, and planning, and by managing the various ways your mind focuses on the past, present, and future. Time is like a bolt of lightning streaking across the sky, so don't take it for granted because it comes in limited quantities for all of us. Try to limit the amount of time you waste, such as wishing your life away, always looking forward to the weekend, by taking loved ones for granted, or by assuming you will always have tomorrow. Especially beware of those feelings of insecurity that motivate you to procrastinate or avoid doing what you need to do for yourself and others. Time is like a flame that only burns strong for so long. Don't waste time wishing for one thing at one point in your life and wishing later you had what you had before. For example, when we are young, we wish we were older, and when we are older, we wish we were young. When we are thin, we want to put on weight, and when we put on weight, we wish we were thin. Appreciate what you have now and cultivate it for the future. Use time to develop your positive potential by taking risks and not being afraid to be yourself. Help others understand you, especially those who really matter to you. Take time for self-reflection, self-discovery, and self-examination. Inner Space, the Infinite Frontier. This is a voyage of story and study fashioned for you. Its purpose to reveal to you the universe of mind, body, and spirit, to boldly take you where no one has taken you before.